This story is about Dave Karnes. On the first anniversary of 9/11, with the attack still fresh in the minds of many Americans, Slate shared the story of a retired Marine who responded to the attacks on the World Trade Center and found two survivors. In honor of the anniversary, the article is reprinted below. Only 12 survivors were pulled from the rubble of the World Trade Center as the towers fell on September 11, 2001, despite intense rescue efforts. Two of the last three to be located and saved were Port Authority police officers. They were not discovered by a heroic firefighter, or a rescue worker, or a cop. They were discovered by Dave Karnes. Karnes had been near the World Trade Center. He wasn't even in New York when the plane hit the towers. He was in Wilson, Connecticut, working in his job as a senior accountant with Deloitte Touche. When the second plane hit, Karnes told his colleagues were at war. He had spent 23 years in the Marine Corps infantry and felt it was his duty to help. Karnes told his boss he might not see him for a while. Then he went to get a haircut. The small barber shop in Stamford, Connecticut, near his home, was deserted. "Give me a good Marine Corps squared-off haircut," he told the barber. When it was done, he drove home to put on his uniform. Karnes always kept two sets of Marine fatigues hanging in his closet, pressed and starched. It's kind of a weird thing to do, but it comes in handy, he says. Next, Karnes stopped by the storage facility where he kept his equipment. He needed rappelling gear, ropes, canteens of water, his Marine Corps K-bar knife, and a flashlight at least. Then he drove to church. He asked the pastor and parishioners to say a prayer that God would lead him to survivors. A devout Christian, Karnes often turned to God when faced with decisions. Finally, Karnes lowered the convertible top on his Porsche. This would make it easier for the authorities to look in and see a Marine, he reasoned. They could see who he was, he'd be able to zip past checkpoints, and more easily gain access to the site. For Karnes, it was a God thing that he was in a Porsche 911 that day. He only purchased it a month earlier. It had been a stretch financially, but he decided to buy it after his pastor suggested that he pray on it. He had no choice but to take it that day because his Mercury was in the shop. Driving the Porsche at speeds of up to 120 miles per hour, he reached Manhattan and was stopping at McDonald's for a hamburger in the late afternoon. His plan worked. With the top off, the cops could see his press fatigues, his neatly cropped hair, and his gear up front. They waved him past barricades. He arrived at the site, the pile, at about 5:30. Building 7 of the World Trade Center, a 47-story office structure adjacent to the Twin Towers, had just dramatically collapsed. Rescue workers had been ordered off the pile. It was too unsafe to let them continue. Flames were bursting from a number of buildings, and the whole site was considered unstable. Standing on the edge of the burning pile, Karnes spotted another Marine dressed in camouflage. His name was Sergeant Thomas. Karnes never learned his first name, and he's never come forward in time since. Together, Karnes and Thomas walked around the pile, looking for a point of entry farther from the burning buildings. They also wanted to move away from the officials trying to keep rescue workers off the pile. Thick black smoke blanketed the site. The two Marines couldn't see where to enter. But then the smoke just opened up. The sun was setting, and through the opening, Karnes for the first time saw clearly the massive destruction. I just said, "Oh my God, it's totally gone." With a sudden parting in the smoke, Karnes and Thomas entered the pile. "We just disappeared in the smoke, and we ran. They climbed over the tangled steel and began looking into voids. They saw no one else searching the pile. The rescue workers, having ordered the area to leave the area. United States Marines, Karnes began shouting. If you can hear us, yell or tap. Over and over, Karnes shouted the words. Then he would pause and listen. Debris was shifting, and parts of the tower were collapsing further. Fires burned all around. I just had an overwhelming sense, come over me that we were walking on hollowed ground, that tens of thousands of people could be trapped and dead beneath us, he said. After about an hour of searching and yelling, Karnes stopped. Be quiet, he told Thomas. I can hear something. He yelled again. We can hear you. Yell louder. Hear a faint, muffled sound in the distance. Keep yelling. We can hear you. Karnes and Thomas zeroed in on the sound. We're over here, they heard. Two Port Authority police officers, Will Jimeno and Sergeant John McLaughlin, were buried in the center of the World Trade Center ruins, 20 feet below the surface. They could be heard but not seen. By jumping into the larger opening, Karnes could hear Jimeno better, but I still couldn't see him. Karnes sent Thomas to look for help. Then he used his cell phone to call his wife Rosemary in Sanford and sister Joy in Pittsburgh. He thought they could work the phones and get through to New York Police Department headquarters. Don't leave us, Jimeno pleaded. He later said he feared Karnes' voice would trail away, as had that another potential rescuer hours earlier. It was now about 7 p.m., and Jimeno said McLaughlin had been trapped for roughly 9 hours. Karnes stayed with them, taught them until help arrived in the form of Chuck Sirica, a former paramedic with an expired license, who pulled out his old uniform out of his closet and came to the site. 10 minutes later, Scott Strauss and Patty McGee, officers of the Police Emergency Service Unit of the NYPD, also arrived. The Strauss and Sirica spent 3 hours digging Jimeno out of the debris, which constantly threatened to collapse, has been well told in the New York Times and elsewhere. At one point, all they had was to dig out Jimeno or a pair of handcuffs. Karnes stood by, helping pass tools to Strauss, offering his Marine K-bar knife when it looked as if they might have to amputate Jimeno's leg to free him. As Jimeno was finally pulled out, another team of cops worked for 6 more hours to free McLaughlin, who was buried deeper in the pile. We'll be returned momentarily.